I want you to imagine a reality just for a moment where absolutely nothing is random, and I mean nothing.
Right, like zero chance involved.
Exactly. You don't catch a cold because someone sneezed on you on a crowded subway. You don't get into a fender bender because the roads are icy, and the car in front of you slammed on their brakes.
Yeah, the typical bad luck stuff.
Right. If a stray dog snaps at you or you trip over a curb and twist your ankle, it is not bad luck. Imagine a world where every single physical injury, illness, or misfortune, no matter how seemingly accidental, is a direct, undeniable physical manifestation of your inner consciousness.
I mean, it is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Because we are so entirely conditioned, right, like biologically and culturally, to just accept the chaos of the physical world.
Oh, totally. We expect chaos.
We do. We accept viruses, we accept gravity, we accept sheer blind coincidence.
Yeah.
So to strip all of that away and replace it with absolute unyielding internal causality, it fundamentally changes how you view every single interaction you have with the physical universe.
So you're not just a victim of circumstance anymore.
Exactly. You are no longer navigating a world of random variables. You are basically navigating a mirror of your own mind.
And that intense, totally uncompromising shift in perspective is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into a highly specific, honestly radical text from July 2011.
Yeah, it's called The Mystery and Value of Health.
Right. Written by an author named Suofeng, translated by Treasure, and edited by Kayer. And our mission today is to really unpack this author's incredibly detailed framework, which completely binds physical health and safety to spiritual purity.
And we should probably state clearly right up front, just as a disclaimer, we are examining this document purely as a fascinating piece of philosophical and spiritual architecture.
Right. We are not endorsing it.
No, definitely not. We aren't endorsing its medical claims, its religious views, or its worldview. We are just acting as impartial guides here, exploring these concepts exactly as the author laid them out.
Because whether you agree with it or not, the internal logic of this text is, it's meticulously constructed.
It really is. It's quite something to behold.
Oh, absolutely. The internal consistency is wild. So to understand Fei Feng's worldview, we basically have to start at the absolute root of how the text defines a physical ailment. It makes this incredibly bold statement right out of the gate, saying humans should never suffer illness.
Yeah, that stood out to me too.
In fact, the author says we should strive for and this is a quote, death without illness.
Which is such a striking, specific phrase, right? Death without illness. It immediately forces you to sort of separate the biological concept of aging, like the natural end-of-life process, from the actual concept of disease.
Right. They aren't the same thing in this framework.
Exactly. In this view, you can reach the end of your lifespan, sure, but getting sick along the way, that is seen as an unnatural glitch. The author's core thesis is that the mystery of staying healthy lies entirely in possessing a perfect soul and a complete consciousness.
Okay, let's really dig into the mechanics of that. Because the text talks about illness and disasters being caused by problems in what it calls the non-material structures of life. The idea is that if your consciousness is pure, that unseen structure is perfect, and therefore your physical body is practically untouchable. But I want to maybe move past the typical soul as a blueprint analogy, because a blueprint is, static. It's just a piece of paper.
Yeah, that doesn't quite capture what he's going for.
Right. What the author is describing feels much more active. It's almost like your consciousness is an algorithm or like a dynamic magnetic field. If the underlying code is clean, the physical reality just renders perfectly.
I think that is a much better way to conceptualize it, yeah. It is an active, continuous projection. The author posits that consciousness is not an emergent property of the physical brain. It's actually the other way around.
The non-material is in charge.
Exactly. The non-material structure is the primary reality. The physical body and your physical circumstances are really just the downstream rendering of that consciousness. Therefore, a flaw in the physical structure is fundamentally just a symptom of a flaw in that unseen code.
But this is where the text takes a leap that I genuinely, I struggle with. I can sort of wrap my head around a mind-body connection when it comes to disease, right? We know stress affects the immune system.
Sure, yeah. Psychosomatic symptoms are real.
Right. We know trauma carries physical weight. But the author explicitly includes what we consider pure random accidents. They specifically claim that car crashes, being bitten by a dog, being bitten by a snake, falling from a height, or even just twisting your ankle, that all of those are directly caused by the imperfection of your consciousness and your soul.
Yep.
How does the text possibly justify blaming the victim's consciousness for a wild animal attacking them? That's a huge leap.
Well, it's because in Sweffing's framework, randomness literally does not exist. It is an absolute, uncompromising rejection of external variables.
No bad luck whatsoever.
Zero. If you believe your consciousness is a magnetic field that actively shapes your reality, then a snake bite isn't just a random encounter in the woods. Your flawed, energetic field mathematically aligned you with the snake.
Wow.
Yeah, you cannot blame the snake. You cannot blame the icy sidewalk for your fall. You cannot blame the distracted driver for the crash. Every single thing, without exception, is an internal structural failure manifesting in the physical world.
It's just breathtakingly absolute. Like, I'm thinking about my own life. Let's say last Tuesday, I got cut off in traffic, I got really irritated, and a minute later I spilled hot coffee all over my lap.
A pretty normal bad morning.
Right, and in my mind, the guy cutting me off was just a jerk, and the coffee spilling was just me being clumsy. But Xiafeng would say the irritation I felt actually caused the physical reality of the spill.
Exactly. It completely shifts the entire burden of physical safety onto your spiritual purity. Think about the sheer psychological weight of that for a second.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Right. You aren't just responsible for eating a balanced diet and, looking both ways before you cross the street. You are constantly responsible for the energetic purity of your soul. Because if it slips, even for a moment, the universe is obligated by its own physics to reflect that flaw back to you as physical trauma.
Which honestly fills me with a deep sense of existential dread. I mean, if my own flawed consciousness is out there dynamically altering reality to attract car crashes and twisted ankles, how do I turn it off?
Well, that's the big question.
Right. How do I fix the code? Because if we cause our own snake bites, logically, we have to be the ones to prevent them.
And this is exactly where the author pivots from diagnosis to prescription. The text provides a highly specific path. The only solution, according to Xiafeng, is taking what is called the way of the greatest creator.
And that path is very syncretic, isn't it? Like, it pulls from a lot of different places.
It does. The text talks about following the teachings of Jesus Christ, Buddha, Sakyamuni, gods, celestial beings, and saints. It's pulling from major global spiritual traditions to create this sort of ultimate standard of purity.
Okay, yes, but the author distills all of those vast spiritual teachings down into this highly actionable, almost utilitarian core metaphor. They call it building our soul gardens.
Right, the soul garden.
And if you have a garden, the primary maintenance required is weeding.
Pulling the weeds, exactly. And the list of weeds is fascinating because of how sweeping it is. You have the heavy hitters, obviously, the things most religions warn against.
Like desire, anger, ignorance, pride, and jealousy.
Yeah, but then the author drills down into much more mundane, everyday territory. They list complaining, comparing, selfishness, laziness, arrogance, greed, and avid possession.
Complaining is a weed. That just gets me. And it doesn't stop at specific behaviors either. The text explicitly states that any negative, gloomy, or pessimistic ideas are weeds that make good health absolutely impossible. And this is what I find so compelling, but also so intense about the text. The extreme literalism of this metaphor. In mainstream pop psychology today, we hear a lot about, the law of attraction or manifesting.
Sure, the idea that good vibes bring good things.
Exactly. But Xiafeng takes this to a terrifying, almost medicalized extreme. The text treats a bad mood or a tendency to complain about your workday as a literal, active pathogen. Complaining is treated with the exact same urgency and mortal peril that a modern doctor would treat a bacterial infection.
You're touching on the exact mechanism the author is proposing here. If you look at the structural logic of it, by equating a fleeting pessimistic thought like feeling gloomy on a rainy afternoon with an impending physical disaster, the text is demanding constant, rigorous policing of one's own internal emotional state.
So you can never just, have a bad day. A bad day is literally a biological hazard.
It is a massive mental load. To guarantee your physical safety from disease or accidents, you must maintain an unbroken, microscopic streak of emotional and spiritual perfection.
That's impossible.
Well, in this framework, there is no grace period for a casual complaint or a split second of envy when you see a neighbor's new car. Because the very moment that weed sprouts in your soul garden, your non-material structure is compromised. Your algorithm is corrupted.
And boom, you twist your ankle.
Instantly.
Yeah.
You are instantly vulnerable to a twisted ankle or disease.
Okay, so if the only valid cure to all human ailment is this relentless weeding of our spiritual garden, What does the author do with the rest of human history? I mean, humanity has spent thousands of years painstakingly developing medical science.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error.
Right. We've mapped anatomy, we've discovered antibiotics, we perform incredibly complex surgeries. What about all of that?
Swiffing dismisses it, all of it, entirely.
Just tosses it out.
Yes. The text refers to the vast, cumulative history of global health theories as a misty ocean, claiming that all of it, every last bit, is merely scratching the surface.
Wow.
In this framework, all medicine, whether modern or ancient, only treats the physical downstream symptoms. It never touches the root cause.
And he doesn't just make a vague, sweeping generalization about, like, modern medicine either. He goes after the absolute titans of historical healing. I was reading this section of the text, and he specifically rejects the ancient emperor's classic internal manuscripts. And he dismisses Shengnang's herbal classic. He literally calls out legendary historical figures by name, like Biang Huatu, Zhang Zongjing, Sun Simiao, and Li Shizhen.
And to really understand the weight of what he's doing there, you have to realize who those figures are, right? Those are the foundational pillars of traditional Chinese medicine.
Right, they aren't just random doctors.
No, Huatu is essentially a god of surgery and acupuncture. Bianc is the ultimate legendary diagnostician. These are figures whose theories on the body's energy and physical balance have been studied, revered, and applied for millennia. And Shuofang is saying that the greatest medical observers in human history completely missed the point.
It's so bold. He also rejects Taoist healthcare, Qin Shi Huang's historical search for elixirs, modern Western medical science, obviously meridian collateral theory, the practice of collecting qi, and even modern publications.
Yeah, he mentions health magazines.
Right, health magazines and specific contemporary books like Yi's Wisdom of Avoiding Illness.
It is a truly comprehensive, scorched earth dismissal of human intervention.
It is, and the inclusion of traditional Chinese medicine alongside modern Western science is really interesting to me, because Western medicine and TCM often disagree on the mechanics of the body.
Rep it. Very different paradigms.
Western medicine might look at a cellular infection, while TCM might look at a blockage of qi or like energy flow along meridian lines. But Su Feng takes both of these completely different disciplines and just tosses them into the exact same bucket. They are all labeled as ineffective attempts at solutions.
I mean, it sounds incredibly arrogant on the surface, doesn't it? To dismiss thousands of years of human endeavor in one paragraph. But if you step back and look at it structurally, this sweeping rejection is perfectly logically consistent within the author's own closed-loop framework.
Okay, walk me through that logic. Why are qi and meridians considered just as useless as a Western antibiotic?
Well, think back to the premise of the non-material structure we were just talking about. Traditional Chinese medicine might say that an illness is caused by blocked qi, a disruption in your body's energy flow, right?
Right.
Shuofeng looks at that and says, sure, maybe the energy is blocked. But why is it blocked? It's blocked because you are harboring a weed of jealousy.
Ah, I see. So even the subtle energy work of TCM is still just treating a symptom?
Precisely. If you fundamentally believe that the true root cause of a twisted ankle is spiritual arrogance, then applying a material or even an energetic solution, whether that's an X-ray, an herbal poultice, or acupuncture, is ultimately futile.
You're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
You are putting a cast on a broken arm, but you aren't curing the pride that caused the arm to break in the first place. You might heal the physical symptom temporarily, but the flawed blueprint remains. The weed is still in the garden.
And so you're just going to get hurt again.
Exactly. Because the universe has to reflect your non-material structure, you are mathematically bound to just get sick or injured again in a new way until you address the spiritual root.
That is just... It's a staggering set of claims. The author has completely deconstructed the physical world as we know it. They've blamed random snake bites on fleeting bad moods. They've dismissed every brilliant doctor and healer in human history as superficial. And they claim the absolute only way to survive without illness is this intense, zero-tolerance spiritual purification.
It's a lot to ask someone to believe.
It's huge. A claim that huge, that radical, it requires massive, undeniable proof. How does Shuofeng plan to prove this to a world that relies so heavily on empirical evidence?
Well, the author is actually quite direct about the need for proof. The text uses the exact phrase, facts speak louder than words.
Which is such a grounded, practical phrase for a text that deals so heavily in the metaphysical, right?
It is. They don't just ask the reader to take this entirely on faith or, just meditate on it in isolation. They propose a living, breathing proof. The text points to a specific group of people called Chanyuan celestials who settle in a physical location called the second home.
Oh, okay.
And the text notes this is now referred to as the new oasis for life.
Wait, so he is essentially setting up a spiritual clinical trial.
Basically, yeah.
He's laying down a gauntlet. This isn't just a philosophical theory floating in the ether. The author is pointing to a specific real-world community and saying, watch them. Watch these people in the second home. They won't get sick.
Exactly. The author claims that if you observe these individuals over the next few years, you will see that they no longer get sick. Period. And furthermore, if anyone arrives at the second home already suffering from an illness, they will recover quickly simply by taking this way of the greatest creator and weeding their soul garden.
Okay, but this sounds totally unfalsifiable because it's a closed philosophical loop. Think about it. Let's say a guy living in the second home suddenly gets the flu or, I don't know, falls off a ladder. Does the community say, oh, I guess the theory is wrong?
No, of course not.
No. The framework demands that they look at the guy with the flu and say, ah, you must have secretly harbored a pessimistic thought yesterday. You didn't weed your garden well enough.
You've hit on the exact sociological tension of a belief system like this. When illness equals moral or spiritual failure, the pressure to appear physically perfect within that community must be immense.
It has to be. You'd hide every sniffle.
Right, because you cannot get sick without it being a public indictment of your soul. But the unfalsifiability of it is almost beside the point, honestly, because of what the text is actually doing in this final section. Notice how the entire nature of the document shifts here.
What do you mean? How so?
Well, it starts as a theoretical, metaphysical treatise on the origins of health and the structure of consciousness, right?
Yeah, very abstract.
But by the end, it transitions into a direct call to action. The final instruction is that people should take this path and enter the second home as soon as possible.
Oh, I see. It shifts from philosophy to a direct recruitment pitch.
It's an incredibly powerful incentive structure. The promise of perfect, unassailable physical health, the promise of a literal death without illness, and a life completely insulated from the random cruelty of accidents is being leveraged as the ultimate reason to join this specific second home lifestyle.
It is a brilliantly constructed argument when you really look at the mechanics of it. Think about the journey we just took through this single-source document.
Takes you on quite a ride.
It really does. It starts by identifying a universal human vulnerability, our fear of illness and unpredictable disaster. Then it diagnoses a hidden, invisible cause that only the author understands. Next, it systematically tears down and dismisses all competing cures, from ancient herbs to modern surgery.
Clearing the board, basically.
Exactly. And finally, once you are isolated from all other solutions, it offers you an exclusive, guaranteed sanctuary, the second home.
It is a masterclass in establishing a problem and presenting oneself as the sole provider of the solution. The logic is hermetically sealed.
Hermetically sealed, yeah. That's the perfect way to put it. Which brings us back to where we started, really, to the very first question I asked you to imagine. I want to leave you, listening to this, with a final thought to ponder. Shufeng's framework presents a universe with zero randomness, a universe where every single physical injury, every illness, every stubbed toe, dog bite, or car crash is a direct, inescapable reflection of your inner spiritual state.
And as we discussed, on the surface, that sounds terrifying. It is an incredibly heavy, almost crushing burden of personal responsibility.
Yeah.
It means you can never just be an innocent victim of circumstance. You are always the architect of your own misfortune.
But I want you to consider the deep, almost primal psychological appeal of this idea. We live in a chaotic, intensely unpredictable world, a world where anyone, no matter how good, how careful, or how healthy they are, can get sick or get hurt at absolutely any time.
It's scary.
It's terrifying to be at the mercy of biology and physics. So in the face of that random chaos, how profoundly comforting might it be to believe the illusion that you could have 100% absolute control over your physical fate simply by controlling your thoughts?